Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody that have joined us from different places and time zones. I'm Abdul Jamil, a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and I hope you people would be enjoying your autumn while practicing social distancing all the times. Prior to getting started about the event, let me give you a brief overview of Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program. Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program provides countless opportunities. Hello?
Yes, Jimmy.
Okay. Before getting started and going on to the session, I would like to give a brief overview about Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador Program. This program helps students to connect directly with Microsoft employees and mentors. It helps students to get the skills which would directly increase the chances of getting landing their dream jobs. Students even get Microsoft 365 apps, cloud services, and different development tools, and that absolutely free. Today, we've arranged a session about Git and GitHub. For this, we've invited Dr. Sarah Guthals. She is currently working as Principal Program Manager on Reactor team at Microsoft. She has also worked for GitHub for around 3 years and is also an independent GitHub contractor. Welcome, Dr. Sarah. over to you, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good day, evening, morning. For me, it's morning. I'm happy to be here today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub. I'm going to be sharing some resources over in the Q&A portion. I'll post some things over there. And we'll also have a resource doc for you afterwards. So anything that I share today, you'll have access to is freely available and publicly available. I'm really happy to be here. Today we're going to talk about GitHub. And before we talk about GitHub, we need to talk about Git. So GitHub and Git are two somewhat separate things. Git is a way of doing source control for your code. So you can kind of think about this like any kind of like Word document that you might use, whether it's Microsoft Word or Google Docs, where you have collaborators and changes can be tracked, and then certain changes can be accepted or not accepted. You may already know all of this, but I always like to kind of frame it in that way first. So Git is a source control software, and basically what it does is it tracks changes that you're making to any code. You commit those changes in what's called a commit. So you kind of like, write changes in your code. You create a commit to say this is a set of changes that I think are good changes. And in addition to that, you can also have branches. So you'll have like your main set of code. You can have a branch that says this bit of code is the code that Sarah's working on, and this bit of code is the code that Adrian's working on, and I'm going to work on my bit, make all of my commits, and then say I want the main code to take mine. He can work on his bits, and he wants the main code to take his. What does that look like? Let's actually kind of explore that a little bit. Saying it in words is not as useful as actually watching it happen. So one of my favorite resources is this one. This is the Git. All right, perfect. This is the Git book, basically. It's freely available online. You can just check it out. But it kind of starts to explain how Git works. So on Git, you might have on your local computer a file with multiple versions of it. You start with version 1, and then every edit that you make is a next level version. You could imagine having a central server where you've got a document with multiple versions, and two different computers might have basically a copy of those. In addition to that, you could have two different computers having a copy of that file, but also each have their own versions and be able to talk to each other. And there's some history of Git. And this is kind of like an example of the commits over time. So you could imagine that you have multiple files, and you've got an entire kind of repository, we call it, but you can kind of think about it like a folder of files, A, B, and C. On the second version, there have been changes to file A and changes to file C. And then on the third version, there's been changes to only file C. And so you can see that maybe I've made some edits to two of the files. I've created a commit. That's now version 2. Now I've made some edits to file C. I've made a commit. Now that's version 3. So that's kind of how it works. GitHub, on the other hand, is basically a layer on top of that. So GitHub is essentially a place to store all of your code, right? So at the very, very basics, it's a place online to store all of your code. So you can write code on your local machine, and then you can push them up to GitHub, and GitHub will store it for you. GitHub works with Git, obviously, GitHub. So what happens is you create a repository or a folder on GitHub. You make a copy on your local machine. You make some changes into your file. You create commits, and then you push those up to the GitHub repository, and it keeps track of that like that. That allows you to then work with other people and collaborate, and we'll do a demo of that in just a minute. GitHub is also the largest open source community. Open source is essentially software that is written that allows every person in the world to look at the code and contribute to it. We'll explore kind of how you can get involved in open source contributions towards the end. So you can head over to github.com, and my profile is at github.com/sguthals. So like I said, GitHub is not only a place to store all of your code, but it is also a place, it is also an open source community. Profiles on GitHub can be very useful to that effect. For example, you can actually create on your profile a readme doc. You might know that readme docs are often useful for code that you're writing, so then that way people can understand how to install your code, test your code, what features are coming, whatever it might be. But a readme can also be useful for a human. For example, you can not know how to install me, but you can know who I am, what I'm about, and some of my top repositories that I care about, so you can know the projects that I care about. I'll show you how you can, so if you want to make your own GitHub profile readme, I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But first, we should probably figure out how to, and actually I just realized, well, actually, let's do it right now because I just realized I have a typo here. That's not my Twitter ID, so we can make a change to this right now. The nice thing about GitHub is that you can interact with it in the browser or on your local machine in any editor you want. Today, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code, but you can really use any editor you want. So like I said, you can actually interact with it right in the browser, though. GitHub uses Markdown, which I forgot to grab a URL for that, but GitHub uses Markdown. And there's a guide for it. Markdown is essentially this Markdown programming language that allows you to write just text, right? It's not meant for code compiling or anything like that. So we'll be exploring a little bit of Markdown, but you can explore this guide later. All right, so like I said, GitHub is a place to store your code. I mentioned that code, you can think about it like a folder of code. On GitHub, we call that a repository. So every single bit of code that you have is in a repository. In this case, my README is in a special repository that is just my name. So this is a public repository. You can take a look. But if you were to create a GitHub repository with just your GitHub username, it would create this special repository for you that would then show the README on your profile page. So I want to make that change. I can do it right here inside of the browser. So you can pretend like this is, you on your local machine. It's funny, the URL is correct, but I, for some reason, wrote the text wrong. So you can see right here, it opens up, when I clicked on that little pencil, it opens up this edit file view. And I could, delete the whole thing if I wanted to. I don't. But you can make any kind of changes that you want. You can see that GitHub supports emojis, which is always fun. And this is an example of Markdown. So using these like hashtags or pound signs, this is basically setting your headers. So this is basically like an H3 or third level header. If we were to make it bigger, we can check that out. So let's compare. Right now, hi there is the same size as looking for something in particular. We're going to make hi there an H1 header, and I'm going to go ahead and make a change here to make my Twitter handle correct. Like I mentioned, so right now we're just kind of making changes to a file. We can commit those changes to say, yes, I'm ready for these changes to be kind of all together. So I'm going to commit this. And it's always a good idea to have commit message that aren't just updating file or fixing the bug or trying to fix the bug. Have them be a little bit descriptive, because the best Git/GitHub is if you've made some changes and then you make a commit. And then you're like, oh my gosh, none of this works. This part right here, all of it's trash. It totally doesn't work. You can actually revert to previous commits, and it's much easier to know which commit to revert to if you have good descriptions. So I'm going to commit directly to my main branch because this is just a simple change, but I'll show you in a bit why branching might be important. So I'll go ahead and commit. Okay, so now those changes have been made. And if we come back over to my profile and we refresh, maybe. Oh, still trying to refresh. There it goes. So now hi there is much bigger. My Twitter handle right here has been changed to Dr. Guthals, and we can see that hi there is much bigger than the looking for something in particular. You just made some changes. That simple. But let's actually try this out and play around with how it might happen when you want to actually like have it on your local machine and not do things directly inside of the browser. And okay, cool. I'll try to keep an eye on the Q&A as well. Just to make. How much storage does GitHub provide? I'm not actually sure. So the biggest concern around storage that I've ever run into is needing to be able to have a very, 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 very large file be pushed up to the repository all at once. So that's large file system. So Git LFS basically. You're not likely to run into this problem very often. If you're doing kind of like regular coding, this is often a problem for people who are like developing like a full-on video game with the most detailed of 3D characters and things like that. You can see here, the description says that it's often used for things like audio samples, video, really, really large data sets, graphics, things like that. If you have like pictures though, like simple things like that, it's not a problem. So other than that, I've never run into like a. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is, well, actually really quickly, I did want to show you, like, I do have some GitHub repositories for just some of my projects. So for example, my GitHub repository for Learn with Dr. G, this is a show that I have, and anytime I write code related to it, I just upload the code here. So then that way I have my code samples that are related to that and it's easy to find them. I also have Build with Dr. G, which is intended to be a place where I do like just fun projects that are just completely unrelated. I have done nothing for this yet. That's totally fine. And then I also have Talks with Dr. G, which we'll get into in the later half of this talk because you'll actually get to engage with this one. All right. Before we actually, and sorry, there it goes. Continue, I do want to mention a couple of resources. There's the GitHub Student Developer Pack. So if you're a student, you can actually get this pack, which not only like helps you with GitHub stuff, but it also gives you a ton of additional offers and resources to use at your disposal. So for example, Canva, which is a really, really easy way to create some beautiful graphics and designs. You get free 12-month subscription of that. You also get to use GitHub Pro while you're a student, which is typically something that you have to pay for, and you can check out what that means. You get to have the GitHub student plan the Unity student plan for free. You get access to Microsoft Azure, Heroku, just like a ton of GitHub stuff, but you can see me scrolling through all of these resources. So if you are a student, definitely check out the student pack. It's definitely worth it. The next thing that we're going to be using is Visual Studio Code. This is a free editor that can be used on Windows, Linux, Windows, Linux, Mac. I really like using applications that I can use on all of my devices. I switch between Windows machines and Mac machines like in one day. I use both. So being able to have the same kind of environment and expectation is really important for me. In addition to that, Visual Studio Code has extensions for GitHub and Git integration, so it's easy to use, and we'll see that in just a minute. The next thing is GitHub Desktop. Again, GitHub Desktop, especially on Windows, is a really, really great resource. I say that because for me, and actually maybe that's just me saying a bias, for me, it's really useful to not have to switch between command prompt or PowerShell or what have you, or WSL and my Mac terminal or my Linux terminal. WSL has made it a lot easier, but it is just much easier for me, again, to have one way that I clone and push changes and things like that. Okay, so now we're not going to do that one yet. We're going to jump back over to here, and we're going to create a new repository, and we're going to go through this whole process and make sure that we kind of understand what's happening here. So on GitHub, wherever you are, there'll always be this kind of top bar here, and on the very right-hand side, next to your avatar, there'll be this plus button where you can create a new repository. So I'm going to do that now. There are repository templates. We're not going to get into that, but basically people create templates that you can then use as your basic, like your starter code or your basic outline or things like that. We don't need that for this one. So I'm going to create a repository called MSA November Demo. I'm not going to add a description right now. I'm going to make this repository public. I always initialize with a README. I think code without a README, even if it's just your own code, is just never a good idea. 6 months from now, when you go to revisit it, you're not going to remember what it is. So even if you're not sharing it with someone, having a README to kind of like make sure that you know what's going on is important. The other thing is a license. Using a choosing a license for your repository for your code is really important. Again, even if you don't intend to share this with anyone. There's this choosealicense.com website that you can go to that helps guide you through this. So for example, if you need to work within a particular community, so you want to contribute to some community or open source project, the best bet is to see what license they're using and use the same one. So then that way you can make sure that your contributions can be included. If you just want anyone to be able to use your code however they want, like you're just doing this because you're trying to learn something, and you're fine if someone takes this code and then, wraps it up and makes a closed source version and sells it because like it's just a basic, demo or something like that, you can use MIT. And if you want people to basically do anything that they want with your code, but not be able to kind of close source it, which means not be able to make it private and distribute it like that, then you might want to have the GNU or GNU GPL v3 license. In this case, I'm just going to choose the MIT license because it's not that, nothing too important here. And then I'm going to create my repository. Notice that you can also set your default branch name. I prefer to use the default branch name main, but you can set it to whatever you want. So now I have my new repository. It's under my account. It's called MSA Nov Demo. We have a couple of tabs up here. The code tab will take us to all of our code. In this case, you can kind of see this square here with the blue top. This is basically my folder of code. Right now, all I have are two files. I've got a license file, which just takes me to my license. I can actually modify it too if I wanted to. I'm going to stick with the actual MIT license, but if you wanted to, add in some other provisions or something like that, you could. I also have my README file. README files will always show up at the bottom, as well as you can click on it and see it here. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, make a change to my README file, and I'm just going to call this, make it a little bit more descriptive. And I'm just going to make that change. It really is just an update to the README, but I'll just say like update to README title. And I'm going to go ahead and make a change. Commit the change to my main branch. Now my README has the new title. Okay, but let's actually get this down into our code. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on code, and you have a few options here. This is another reason I love using GitHub Desktop, because you can just open it directly with GitHub Desktop. But I do want to show you a different way of doing it first. We'll do the GitHub Desktop way in just a minute. You can copy this URL, this HTTPS URL, copy it by clicking on this little clipboard. And then we can actually head over to Visual Studio Code, open up a new window. Come on. And we can go to the source control extension here. And notice the window doesn't represent anything. It's not associated with any kind of repository or folder. It's just a brand new window. And I'm going to clone my repository. Cloning a repository means that you're going to make a copy from the server down on your local machine. So I'm going to clone my repository. Clone from GitHub, yes, provide your URL. So I'm going to paste that URL that I just copied. Enter. It's going to ask me to choose where I would like to store this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I want to open this cloned repository in Visual Studio Code. And look at that. There's my README. Very, very, very quick. So let's go ahead and make some changes and see how this works. So I'm going to make a change here. So this is a demo for my, for example. Okay. I'm going to save this file. You can see that the file has that white circle next to the name, means it's not saved. So I'm going to save this file. And when I save that file, notice that that source control extension now has a 1, meaning that there is one change to my code that has not been committed yet. Okay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, yes, that one change, and we can actually see the change. I added this line on line 3. That one change, I do want to add that as a commit. Okay? So adding some description. I'm going to click on this check mark to commit. Yes, I'd always like, I just always do this stage all and commit. We can get into the nuances of staging and things like that, but it's not, that gets complicated. So we're not going to worry about that. It's not extremely necessary for the majority of coding that you're going to do. Once I've staged that commit, we can see, and I'm going to try to do this. I don't know if it'll work. Yeah, see, it does not want to work. So I can't zoom in, but at the very bottom here, we have 2 pieces of information. One is this main. That means that's the branch that we're currently on. We only have one branch. It's the main branch, so that's fine. And the other one is this, it's like a refresh circle with a down arrow next to the number 0 and an up arrow next to the number 1. So what that means is that there are no changes on github.com's main branch that I need to pull down. But there's one commit on my local machine that I can push up. So I'm going to go ahead and push those changes, and it gives me a warning. Okay, sounds good. The warning was just saying this is going to actually push your changes to GitHub. That's what I want, so that's good. Once that has completed, we'll see that now it's just this refresh. So if Visual Studio Code hasn't detected any changes, it's just going to show that refresh, and you can always click on it in case you think that that's a mistake, and it can go contact the server again. So now when we come back up to GitHub and we refresh the page, we'll see that we have that description here. So now let's briefly jump into what branching means. So I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to click on that main branch. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to click on that main branch, and I'm going to create a new branch. And this is going to be called like side feature. So imagine that you've got your main branch, and you're going to go off and build this one feature over here. Okay, and someone else is going to go off and build another feature over here. You want to be able to build your feature without breaking anything on the main branch. Okay, so you're going to build your feature, not break anything on the main branch, and when your feature is ready, you're going to ask to merge it into that main branch. So I'm going to create this. Now we can see down here, instead of main, it says side feature, and we can see that it's got this cloud with an up arrow. That's because the main branch, or sorry, the side feature branch only exists on my local machine right now. If we were to go into github.com and view all branches, we'll see that we only have the main branch. So we have this side branch, and this is going to be my side feature.md file. This is or I'll call this like side feature 1 is a feature that I am working on the side. Cool. Save. And now I'm going to publish. Sorry, before I publish, I want to actually make a commit. So adding the side feature file, commit. So now I'm going to publish this branch with that commit. Give it a second. And when we open up the browser again, we refresh. We'll see now we also have this side feature branch on GitHub. And if we go into our code, we don't have that new file yet, but we can switch into the side feature branch and see that file. There's that side feature file on GitHub. And just like the main branch, we could make changes here. Commit to the side feature branch and open up Visual Studio Code. Click on the refresh and it pulls down the changes. So now what about if we were to be on GitHub desktop and, or sorry, on the browser? Whoa, hello. Oh, that's right. Sorry, I was on the wrong. So main does not have the side feature file, but I switched the branch while I was looking at that file, so it got confused. Go ahead. Sorry, not main. Come on, go back to my repo. There it goes. So you can also, for example, let's say we wanted to add a new file that's called sidefeature2.md. Instead of committing to the main branch, we can create a new branch. We'll call this one sidefeature2. Propose new file. Okay. And this is going to open up a pull request, which I'll get into in just a second. But if we were to come over here and click on side feature now, first we need to synchronize. And then now if we were to come over here, we should see, where's my side feature? Okay, let's go ahead and open it into GitHub desktop. Oh, sorry, we haven't opened it in GitHub desktop yet. Sorry, I'm getting all confused. So we have our side feature 2 branch now. So now we've got side feature and side feature 2. Let's go ahead and open this in GitHub desktop so we can see that. We don't need to clone it again. What we actually want to do is add a local repository because we have already cloned it, but we want to let GitHub desktop know about our repository. And over here, where's my new branch? Oh, fetch origin. Sorry, there it goes. Finally, here's my new side feature 2 branch. We'll see that this says it's on origin, meaning that it only exists up in the github.com server, not down on our local machine yet. And so inside of Visual Studio Code, we can see, there it goes. Now it's refreshed, the same thing. It exists on origin, which is github.com, but not down here yet. So we can switch over to side feature 2, and now our files also contain side feature 2, but do not contain side feature.md because that only exists on side feature branch. All right, so now let's finally get over into pull requests. So we've got 2 branches, side feature and side feature 2. Side feature adds the side feature.md file. Side feature 2 adds the side feature 2.md file. The way GitHub handles adding these into the main branch is through what's called a pull request. So what we've done so far is cloned a repository, pushed code, and pulled code. What a pull request is when you have 2 branches, and this branch, side feature, is requesting that the main branch pull the changes into it. Okay, so that's what's called a pull request. For pull requests, descriptions and titles are very, 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 very important. And I'll show you why in a bit. So I'm going to create a pull request. We can see the commits that I've made. We can see the changes, the file changes that I've made. So I've added a new file, and this is that new file right here. Each of the commits, we can see first I did adding the side, the feature app, and then updating with, this is when I just changed it to say Sarah. And if the changes look good and GitHub can reasonably make these changes, you can merge the pull request. So now our main branch will have that side feature file. And back in Visual Studio Code, again, our main branch, if we synchronize, meaning we pull the changes down, we'll have that side feature file. Okay? But what happens if when we're in our main branch, we created side feature 2.md, and this time we said, this is my side feature 2 file. And then we committed that change. Pushed that change. And then went up to the browser, have that side feature 2 file. What's going to happen with this pull request? Because side feature 2 branch also added a side feature 2 file, but it had different text in it. And you can imagine when it's actual code, it gets really complicated, right? So we're going to go ahead and create this. Create the pull request. This one says, yeah, I can totally merge this for you. How is it going to merge it for us, though? Basically, it's going to add in this, this new markdown file. But what's going to happen to our existing side feature 2 markdown file? Oh, nothing, because I spelled it wrong. Sorry, once I was like, wait a minute, something's not right. 1 second. Let me fix that file name. Rename, and actually this will be good. So side feature 2. There we go. Fixing misspelling of it. Push. I'm sorry, let me go ahead and take a look. Yes, if you don't own the source code and you want to add something to it, yes, you can push the original one. I'll show you how to do that. Talked about branches of 2 persons in the same. Yep. So that's what we're going to do right now is 2 people working on the same part. I'm pretending to be both people, but that's kind of what we're doing now. So pull request 1, we can head over here. And now we see that we've got conflicting files. So now GitHub is like, all right, y'all, I don't know what you're trying to do here. You have one file already that exists, side feature 2.md, and you wrote stuff in it. And now this other person or this other branch is trying to commit changes to it, but they do not match. I don't know what you want me to do. GitHub is only so smart. It's only software. So it's saying you as the human need to figure that out. So I'm going to click on resolve conflicts, and it's going to say, look, this is what exists on the branch that you're trying to push, and this is what exists on main. You need to figure out what you want this file to be. I'm going to show you both of them, but you need to figure it out. And if you had complex file and it was just, this might be a part of it. So you might have like a bunch of code ahead of here, code, and you might have a bunch of code on the bottom, and you might have a bunch of these kinds of things that say that there are conflicts. So it's up to you. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go with what is on the branch. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this, delete that. And this is what I want my side feature 2 file to look like. I'm going to mark as resolved, and I'm going to commit that merge. So this is basically committing the change to the side feature 2 file. And now I can go ahead and merge it. And if we come over here, our side feature 2 file has the updated one. All right, so we've only got about 15 minutes left. I am going to show you GitHub pages quickly. Visual Studio Code is not necessary for GitHub, and I did explain pull requests, so I think I'm caught up on the published questions so far. So I encourage you to kind of just create a repository. It's free. Try it out. Play around with it. If you want, also, you can head over to my Talks with Dr. G, and you can do what's called forking. If you fork my repository, it means that you're going to take my code and make a copy of it on your own account. Once you have forked my repository, you can do all the same things. You can clone it, you can make changes, etc. What I encourage you to do is head over to this student ambassador site. You can click on Intro to GitHub here. This is ours. And you can fork the repository. You can go into this notes folder, create an MD file called yourname.md or whatever you might want it to be. Just like we did with the stuff that we were just doing. And then you can commit those changes and create a pull request. And when you create a pull request, we can see that some other folks have done this in the past. For example, I created this pull request when I created Sarah's here. We can see that other folks have done this for previous talks that I've given. So Petra created a pull request for the Start Dev Change conference that I presented at. So once you create a pull request and I merge it, I only have access to merge it. So you can't just push your changes to my code, but you can request that your changes get pulled into my code. So once you've done that, this MSA Shareboard MD file will get updated with your note as well. So if you want to try this out in a safe environment where you're forking someone else's repository, making changes, and then requesting that they pull those in, try it out. You can't do anything wrong. You cannot break my repository because you cannot make changes to my repository unless I approve them through a pull request. So try it out, and I'm happy to kind of collaborate with you on that. All right. Let's jump into a brief kind of overview of that GitHub flow that we just went through. The GitHub flow is very similar to like the branch or to normal Git. You might create a branch. Okay, so this top blue line is that main branch. You might create your own branch. You'll make some changes and add commits to that branch. When you're ready, you'll create a pull request that says, all of these changes on my branch, I want you to pull those into the main branch, please. There might be a discussion on your code. Maybe I'm like, yeah, sounds great, good, merge. Maybe I'm like, ooh, I like all of this, but this part right here needs to change. Depending on if this is something that needs deployment, you might deploy to make sure that it's working, and then we'll merge the branch into the main branch. So that's how GitHub works. I wanted to show you one example of an open source project. Visual Studio Code is actually open source, which means you can see all of the code. Is there any copyright issues? Yeah, so you do need to look at the licensing for every repository, but I'm going to show you that right now. So for example, Visual Studio Code is an open source project. You could go on and see how Visual Studio Code is built. You could let people know that there are some, bugs with it. You could actually fix things or add things to it if you wanted to. Now, if you write your own feature of Visual Studio Code, the Visual Studio Code team might not pull it in, depending on what it is or what they're doing, but they might. So the first thing to do anytime you get to an open source project that you want to contribute to is to read the README. That's why it's there. The README will tell you about that particular project or repository or team. It'll give you instructions for how to contribute. Read the docs that are like how to contribute docs. For example, first how to build and run the source, what the development workflow is like, what the coding guidelines are like for that particular project, how to submit a pull request, how to find an issue to work on, and how to contribute translations if you want to do some localization, for example. If you have feedback, there's some stuff here. Here's some related projects, extensions. Here's a development container, so then that way you don't have to set up your own local environment. A code of conduct. This is very, very, very important. You can get kicked out of repositories or all of GitHub if you do not follow the code of conduct. And then the license. So in this case, it's using the MIT license again, which means anyone can use this however they want, basically. We can see that's 4.1 thousand people, or more than that, over 100,000 people have created issues on this repository, which basically means that they either had an idea for a new feature, or they ran into a bug or something like that. I always like to find the ones that have a lot of discussion because I find those interesting. So let's just take a look at this one. You can, this person said that they were trying to do a launch.json file, but it was blocked by unrelated extensions. You can see that their issue has a lot of detail. They describe it. This is all, I'm hoping that this is a good one because I did not do this ahead of time. I always like to keep it real. So you can see that they described what happened. They provided screenshots with clear explanation. They're not sure what the fix was, but they did just kind of talk about why they thought this was a bug. Someone else said, oh, I agree with you. It's not the best experience. Could you please also file this issue in that other repository? Just more and more and more discussions. Sometimes people will if you want to contribute to a new project, one good way of doing that is heading over to the issues, clicking on, I always do that, heading over to the issues, clicking on this label filter and looking for good first issue. Good first issue is a great way of finding issues that the team has indicated are great issues where if you're new to the project, it should be fairly easy to build it. So we can see this one, for example, was a bug. It's a good first issue, and there's 11 people talking about it. So let's go check this one out quickly. There's no feedback when choosing check for updates. So someone said, hey, this seems like a problem. There's some discussion about it. A lot of people kind of talking about it. This person said, hey, I think I figured out how to solve this problem. And this person said, great, do you want to submit a pull request? Cool, okay. No, I don't. That is totally fine. You can contribute by opening issues and engaging in discussion and identifying it. And if you don't want to submit the pull request, you do not have to. That's fine. This person, though, was like, hey, I want to do this. Can I try it? Sure, why not? Then this person said, hey, is this available to work on? Is this still open? Having communications on it. Then we can see that this person mentioned the issue here. So let's go take a look at what that is. This is another issue where they said, hey, I think this is related to that other issue. Cool. If you do want to submit a pull request, again, let's take a look at one that has a lot of comments on it. Again, you're going to want to reference the issue that it's fixing. Preferably, you are trying to support the project by fixing issues. If you aren't fixing issues and this is just your own idea, that might be fine. Different open source project maintainers engage differently. So sometimes they're totally open to your ideas. Sometimes they have just a very specific way of engaging. So it's very important that you look through the docs, the README, look through the issues, look through the pull requests, see how that community is interacting with each other so that you can appropriately interact with them as well. They describe what they're doing. And then other people just have further discussions on this. This person said, hey, I think that maybe we should do something like this. There was a commit. So the person said, oh, cool. Well, then this is what I did now. And this person's like, oh, actually, I don't know if this is actually, or maybe I don't know if this is the way we can do it, and there's just kind of further discussion. And we can see that this person, Connor, can't just, push their code to the main branch. They have to wait until all of the checks have passed and until someone has approved this pull request. For example, I'm not authorized to approve it, and merge it into the main branch. Okay. Someone mentioned GitHub Pages. To create a GitHub Pages site, this is basically a website that's just based off of a GitHub repository. You create a new repository called yourusername.github.io. Mine's private, but mine actually gets if you were to go to sguthals.github.io, it would show you this. So sguthals.github.io. It would show you this site. And this is just like, I did not want to have to like build a whole site from scratch and do all of that. I did not, like, this is a pre-canned, like format layout. The way that you get that is inside of your settings. Once you create this, you can head all the way down towards the bottom, and you can specify which branch you want it to be. You can choose a different theme for it. And if you own a custom domain, you can specify that there. Fairly easy to get that started. So I encourage you to just try that out. The last thing I just wanted to touch on was if you're doing your own projects, GitHub is a really great way to complement your resume. So for example, this is a friend of mine who's trying to learn cybersecurity on his own. And so he's just building sample projects. But you can see that he still has an extensive README. He does this for a few reasons. One, it shows what he's thinking of. So then that way, if he is applying for a job or something, he can point a recruiter or hiring manager to his repository and say, this is the kind of project that I work on. He also includes a how to use. So if somebody else is also learning or also wanting to try something out, they can do it too. He describes a little bit about like why he thought about this project and how he overcame different things. Again, this is a really good complement to a resume. He describes the different files and bits to the project. He credits other repositories that he learned from. He's not contributing to them. He's not copying their code necessarily, but he might have gone through those repositories, figured something out, maybe copied and borrowed some of the code here and there. So he's just crediting it. It doesn't have to be extensive. And it's just like a simple way of describing it. He also has another one called My Codes that has 3 different projects. Again, a great way of just kind of describing some of your projects and having people kind of check them out. So I'll put these over here in the chat as well. And I believe that is it. So let's recap really quickly. And actually, sorry, I'm like cycling through. I meant to come to my profile. Perfect. So let's recap really quickly. GitHub is basically a place to store your code. It also is very, very useful because it's a place where you can have either yourself or other people collaborating on code, and it's not going to just mess everything up or get out of sync. It's a very, specific process to ensure that the code that you want to have, deployed or on your main branch is the code that's there. GitHub is also the largest open source community. Open source community is huge. It is specific to each community and each project, and it is very important that you remember to be respectful and that you remember that the person on the other side of that issue or pull request is a person. And often they are doing this for free. They're not getting paid for it. It might be a side project. In the case of Visual Studio Code, we do have actual full-time employees working on it, but oftentimes open source projects are just things that people care about. And so they might have another full-time job. So if they're not responsive, it's never okay to kind of like yell at them or be upset with them unless they're actually doing something really bad to you. Be respectful, be engaging, be responsive on your end. And lastly, GitHub is a place that can complement your own portfolio or resume. You can create a profile that kind of describes who you are and what your favorite projects are. You could put in here that like you're looking for work, or here's the example projects or things like that. And you can also just create repositories with sample projects. So then that way, if you're applying for a very specific type of job, you can say, and here's my work. You can actually see it, in live action. And that's basically what I have for you today. Oh. I know we've only got a couple minutes left, but if there are any last minute questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm really excited to see if you want to try out the Talks with Dr. G forking, and it seems like one person already submitted their pull request, so thank you. We'll check that out and just try it out. Let me know. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Dr. Guthals, and keep me up to date with your GitHub journey. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for giving us your valuable time. I think you've been answering the questions along while giving the session. We've got a few, like around 2 or 3 questions. If you could please answer them. And we've also got a question, as we've been live on Facebook as well. We've got a question from there. A guy there has commented that, let me check the question. Again, a guy has been asking that when will GitHub Pages add support for PHP?
Good question. I mean, I think so. I'm not actually sure. I don't actually work on that. But I'm pretty sure GitHub Pages. There is a way to do that. I honestly don't know, though. Sorry, I can't answer that one.
Okay. No problem. And we've got another question. A guy has been asking, if I don't own the source code and embellish the code with something extra, can I get the option to push the code against the original one?
Yes, so that was what we were talking about with forking, opening up a pull request, and then the owner of that original repository can decide if they want to bring your changes in. So if you want to try the Talks with Dr. G repo and do that, you can see how that process works. Or like on the Visual Studio Code repository, you can see that in action that other people are doing it and just kind of watch and observe how that happens.
So we've got very much limited time, and Dr. Sarah has answered most of the questions. So thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for giving us your valuable time and sharing so much about Git and GitHub. I'm sure the participants would have learned a lot from it.
Definitely. I'm happy to be here. And there is one other question. There's around like what happens if someone essentially steals your code. You can reach out to GitHub support if you find that has happened. But yeah. And if you have a license on it, then you have a way of saying, hey, don't do that. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope to see you on Twitter and or in my repository pull requests.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
And good morning to you as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So now let me call on Microsoft Student Ambassador, Country Lead, the Gold Student Ambassador, Chaudhry Hanzala Maksud, to tell you people about the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador program and how you guys can become a part of this program. Over to you, Chaudhry Hanzala Maksud.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Sarah Guthals, for giving a great session to the attendees, and of course they are very active.
Yes, Hanzala.
Yeah. Sorry. First of all, I would like to thank Ms. Sarah Guthals that she has spared some of the time for the students of our, for Pakistan students, of course, that are from different universities that are attended here, and we have got a great number of audience. We were live on Facebook, we were live on MS Teams, on YouTube. Of course, there is a lot of audience on different platforms. So, regarding before going towards the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador program, first let me tell you about GitHub. Like, this is an open source product. This is an open source, and it is free for all. So there is no need to just to grab something, or you need some kind of payment to share some kind of resources. It is totally and totally free. It is totally the open source. You can get anything from there. You can get anything from that, and you can also contribute your access, you contribute your expertise on the GitHub. You can post on that, and of course you can also get the expertise from other student ambassadors, students, or experts or professionals that are have repositories on the GitHub. So you can also pull that, and you can make them changing as you want. So it is totally free. It is open source. So like sometimes it is that students are giving the sessions, like it is a paid workshop sessions. It is not a deal that it is a open source and it is free of cost. There is no need like the of payment, that you get payment from them and you give deliverable sessions. It is like a free, it is at the open source. There is no need of such things. Okay, coming back to the, let me share the screen for the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. If any one of you wants to become a part of Microsoft Student Ambassadors, the registration is open, and it is the last date is 30th November. You can apply for that. Just I'm sharing a quick things about that. Yeah, just let me check it out. I'm just sharing the screen. Yeah. Just a sec. Yeah. So for Microsoft Student Ambassadors, just write Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors on any browsing platform. You will get a link of Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. It is just a studentambassadors.microsoft.com. It's a simple. You go on that. I have opened on the next tab. Yeah, this open, there will be a link to apply now. Just click on that. It will ask for the login ID. Of course, you will log in with the email. There's a few things that I have told you, that 30th November is the last date for that, and those who will apply till 30th November, they will get their confirmation after that in January. And of course the registration is open 365 days, but there is a portions of selection, like on 30th November. This is the last date for the students, those who will be selected in the January, and then there will be the last date of next cohort. It will be April 2021. So this kind of information, and then privacy terms that you should know about it. This is a privacy, like you should be 16 plus years old, and of course Microsoft Learn student ambassador, and student, of course you have to be a student, and then you should be enrolled in any institute or university, and you should have a valid identification. Of course you have to make it agree. You have to put out some personal information in that, date of birth, like state, province, country, gender, your contact number. And actually this is just a simple things to go. And of course academic information about the country, about the province, about name of your institute, what is the name of your degree, like it is a CS, computer science, electrical engineering, software engineering, system engineering, anything, business, cyber security, they can apply. Degree level, like you are the bachelor, masters or PhD student. It is not for the college or school level, it is for the university students, for the bachelor, master's or PhD. So just coming to the written sample. Before that, I cover up the next things, the social media. This is the digital portfolio of yours, like a written document, or if you have written any blogs, if you have a Twitter account, you have an Instagram account, you have the GitHub repository, like today's session was Dr. Sarah's class have delivered the session about GitHub. It is a great, of course, you should now, I hope now you can repository. You should have a LinkedIn profile, technical blog, like something, whatever those accounts you are having, you should put their usernames here about the link. If any of the accounts you are not having, no worry about that. Just it is not compulsory for all to put it out, but those you are having, you can paste it, others leave it out. So make it possible that as much as many links you can provide. So here will be the any additional information if you are going to tell them. So this I have missed out. This is the written sample. These are the 3 questions: inspired, tech, and related to promotions. Inspired, like how you are inspired from the technology. Just write it about 3 to 4 lines about that, and you have to make the video not more than 2 minutes. It should not be more than 2 minutes. Maybe it will be written here. It should not. Yes, here 2 minutes. So you should not be. The video should not be the more than 2 minutes, and of course you can upload it on any drive or OneDrive or anywhere, and you can post the link here. The next is technical things, like if you are going to give any technical concepts, like about technology, about coding, how you will teach someone. So this will be your technical method. So just tell your experience, like if I'm going to tell something about coding, how I will tell them. If I'm going to tell him any technical experience, like you are going to tell them like how to build GitHub repository. It is also the technical side. Of course you can tell them like how I will tell them, like this how this will be my methodology to sharing the things. So after that, of course this is also the same, like you have to write 4 to 5 lines, or you have to post a video of 2 minutes. So here is a promotion, like if you are hosting any event, how you will promote that. Like today, this event, how we have made this promotion, how everything will be going on. Like if, of course, master student ambassadors, they tell you the things, they mentor you, they give you the resource materials, they give you the professional things, the technical things they provide you, so that you can learn it out, so that you can learn. And the next step is to deliver those things to the community. So for delivering the community, of course you have to host the event. So this is the question, like how you will promote the event, how you will host the event. So about your methodology of hosting the event, you will write it out, or you will make the video of 2 minutes. So these are the 3 videos. You have to post at least one video must be, you have to put it out, but I will prefer you that you should post 2 videos for that. And this is all about Maxwell Student Ambassadors, like how you will apply for that. So I hope so. This is about everyone should know about it. Like this is the method of registration, and this is the things that you have to do. If anyone are having any kind of questions, just reach us out on the Facebook page, or reach me out on. Of course, we are having Facebook page of Master Student Ambassadors MLSC.Pakistan. Of course, you can reach out to any question. We will answer that. Thank you.
Hansila, we've got a question. A person is asking what are the prerequisites to apply for MLSA?
Of course you have to be a student. There's no of course you have some of the students, mostly not some, most of the students ask me that we are on the beginner, on the first semester, second semester, so what kind of technologies we should know. They just need a medium range student. They didn't need a hype one student. They need a medium range student, so they can groom them. So this is the thing, this is the motive of Microsoft Student Ambassador program, to groom the students, to give them the skills, to give them the technical things. To of course, if there is someone on the hype, what's the method for them? So they are going to groom those students. So if you are those students who are on the beginner semester, like first semester, second semester, there are more chances for this selection. So regarding his question, like what of the questions they should know. So I tell you that those questions should be like if they can learn about cloud computing technologies, that will be great. They can learn the best technical thing, any kind of technology. It doesn't matter, any kind of technology you should know. Of course you should be a technical person. They just need a technical person, so that when they will give you the mentorship sessions, so you can understand their things. If you are not any technical person, you don't know anything about technology, so when they will deliver a session, mentorship session, they will give you the resources, then you will not understand. So that is why they are asking for those questions. Anyone who will be on the beginners level, he know the ABC of technical concepts of coding or something about the technologies. He's go ahead. Think.
Thank you, Chaudhry Hansla Maksud, for joining this session and answering answers of the questions of the students. I guess this is enough for today's session, and we'll be running up other sessions as well. So we'll be updating you, the participants, those who have given their contact email addresses, and we'll be arranging virtual events because of the situation, the COVID situation. So thank you guys for joining the event. Have a wonderful day, night, or afternoon, wherever time zone you guys are.
One thing I can add.
Yes.
One thing I can add.
Yes, please, Hansla.
Yeah, those students who have applied for just a second, I shared that. Those students who have ever registered for this event before, they will get their certification by tonight or tomorrow on their emails.
Yes.
It will be sent to them. It will be only sent to them those who have registered, because it is a session that the registration we have started before, and those students who have registered, they will get their certificate by tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, so participants, keep checking your emails by tomorrow, as you will be getting your digital certificates. So have a good time. See you next time.